Come see us doing live shows. We'll be in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only jimmydore.com. What's the effect of that public relations nightmare? I mean, I've heard reports that their economy is cratering and there's a brain drain right now that people are leaving Israel. I have a hard time believing that Israel will somehow be drastically changed, or this won't be a problem forever. What do you think?
Well, they're borrowing so much to finance these wars, this endless war. And while they're getting a lot from the United States taxpayer, as always, it's distorted their economy. The Israeli central bank's going to have to keep raising rates. Israel's economy is heavily reliant on foreign direct investment. It's one of the main sources of sustaining its middle class, upper middle class, and upper class is the tech industry. Israel markets itself as sort of the startup nation. And being at war has fueled tech investment. But at this point, foreign direct investment for the Israeli tech industry has collapsed. And it's unclear if it's going to come back. You also have had like the small business class suffer a huge hit because small businessmen have had to actually fight. If they're under the age of 40, they've had to fight in these wars, and they're serving 3 tours, 4 tours, and their businesses have collapsed. I mean, there's so many factors. A lack of tourism. Israel's heavily dependent on tourism, and tourists are afraid to go there. So then the state has had to pay to house all these people, first from the south and then from the north of the country, who are displaced from their homes. So they've been just pumping money into the like just paying for hotels and housing the same way they did during the COVID event. There's so many economic hits coming at Israel all at once, and life looks much better for anyone who has a second passport in a place like Germany than it does there. Israel is the most dangerous place on the planet to be a Jew. And so why would you want to stay there? It's puzzling to me. The only thing keeping a lot of people there is nationalism, messianism. And that's why poll after poll shows that the happiest people in Israel with the highest rates of approval of their leadership are the religious nationalist fanatics who are settling the West Bank and have the most genocidal mentality towards Palestinians. That's the future of this state.
So, I mean, they're going to, you say that they've signaled they're going to annex the West Bank. Don't they? Again, fill me in on this, but I just figured they already pretty much, they control the West Bank, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
they control it militarily, and then you have the Palestinian Authority, which is basically an occupation subcontractor.
Yeah.
And they control the major cities, but they can't do anything to resist Israel.
Right. So
if they annex the West Bank, it's apartheid. It's a mask-off moment for apartheid. They take responsibility for the Palestinian population. That means, according to international law, they have to feed the population. They have to pay their salaries. They have to provide them water. And that's the quandary Israel finds itself in Gaza, where it said, we're going to totally destroy Hamas. We're going to kill like anyone associated with Hamas, even the municipal authorities, the police. And they've created this Mad Max hellhole in Gaza right now. Israel's actually supporting ISIS-related gang leaders and drug dealers to loot the aid trucks to prevent aid from reaching the population in the north. This is confirmed. And it's doing so it can say that it had no responsibility for the aid not reaching its target. And then it's going to have these kinds of figures take over. It's going to be a complete catastrophe. But Israel will do anything to have it both ways, to be able to take territory, occupy territory, and not have any responsibility for the civilian population, which is what it had before the rise of the Palestinian Authority. And I don't know how they're going to do that.
So The whole UN has turned on Israel. I mean, it seems like the world is against it, except the United States gets to veto any UN resolution. I've heard some of my Jewish friends speak about how, decades and decades after World War II, when they would go through Germany, through Europe, and they would be in hostels, and the people who were from Germany were still embarrassed. They were still associated with being Nazis.
Yeah.
And do you think that will happen to people associated with Israel? Do you think that will happen to Jewish people, that they will be shunned like Nazis were shunned after World War II?
Well, Israelis and Jews are two separate things in many cases. I mean, you have the Jewish diaspora. You have a J Street poll showing that a majority of American Jews actually favor some form of an arms embargo to Israel in order to stop this war. Majority of American Jews oppose war with Iran. So it's not as though all Jews can be held collectively responsible for this, but Israel wants them to be.
Right.
By its nature. It poses as the Jewish state, and it is inflaming anti-Semitism, and it wants to implicate all Jews in its crimes, just as anti-Semites do, and it's working. And I see it more and more online with people just dropping the whole opposition to Zionism and going after Jews directly. Israel wants that, and it serves Zionism because Israel can then say the whole world is against Jews. We need this state to protect them, and it needs to be armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons, and we need to slaughter everyone who opposes us. That's playing out. But what we're also seeing is that Israelis who go to European cities and actually try to intimidate people waving Palestinian flags during soccer competitions, football matches, sending their thugs in the street. They can't get away with it. They're used to doing that in Israel, that level of entitlement and violent, sadistic, psychotic behavior. They're used to getting away with it within the frontiers, the walled off frontiers of their Spartan Jewish version of Jonestown. But they couldn't get away with it in Amsterdam, and local youth, Muslim youth, whooped their asses when they tried to do that. And then they went and cried pogrom and pretended like they were Anne Frank, and the whole media went along with it. But no one who was following social media or paying attention to what was happening actually believed that side of the story. So Israelis themselves are going to be pariahs wherever they go, as long as they insist on acting like thugs and hooligans like they do when they go into Gaza. And Netanyahu himself has to be afraid of entering any country that signed on to the Rome Statute because there's an arrest warrant for him. And this is unprecedented, along with his defense minister. Obviously, there should be thousands more arrest warrants for the pilots who are blowing up homes filled with families and children in Gaza, for the officers, so many soldiers videotaping themselves, wearing women's lingerie in homes where they had displaced the residents or killed them and destroyed their belongings. Of course, there should be more, but we're in a new era now where the ICC and all of these multilateral institutions that were built up after World War II, after the Holocaust, to prevent this from happening again, realized that if they didn't issue an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, or if the International Court of Justice didn't rule that genocide was taking place, if sanctions aren't going to come down, then this whole international order is hollow and completely hypocritical, because they've already gone after Putin for all that in Ukraine. Are they just tools of the United States, or do they actually follow the law and see what the rest of us are seeing? And they've had to defend their credibility, so it's isolating Israel. It's isolating the United States as well. The U.S. run world order died on October 7th, and it's never coming back.
Did you see the Washington Post, their article about? Yeah. It was comical. They're saying that the ICC, they shouldn't be indicting. That's the wrong thing for them to indict and put out a warrant for Netanyahu, because that then compromises them, and then we need the ICC to go after Putin and to go after people in Africa, but don't go after Israel. It's just like, well, then exactly what you just said. Now the game is over. The mask is off, and they're going to be seen as a complete tool and puppet of the United States. They're not an actual justice body. They're just a goon squad. Then, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no clear winner or loser between Israel and Hezbollah. Neither side achieved a clear victory. But we're looking at a larger war. It's not just a military war. And Israel's image has always been central to its ability to deter attacks, to its overall strategy. And its image is fatally damaged. It is destroyed. And unfortunately, for any Jew who has tried to oppose this monstrous project, we see the symbol of our own faith community being turned by it into a new swastika. And that's part and parcel of the declining, disastrous project of Zionism, still kind of managing to persist thanks to an endless supply of U.S. bombs from Genocide Joe, and Donald Trump is pledged to send even more weapons. And there's a new, I think there's a new $250 million arms package being rushed to Israel right now.
Come see us doing live shows. We'll be in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only jimmydore.com.